Great new day to all my self-care family and friends. Welcome back to the Room to Breathe podcast. I'm your host, Life Coach 614, and I am so glad that you're here. Now, before we dive into today's episode, let's have just a little quick reminder. If you're feeling the energy, be sure to tap the screen, like, comment, and share this episode. Your support and love helps us to reach more souls on their healing journey. And if you haven't already done so, be sure to give us a follow, subscribe to our channel, so that way you never miss a moment of what's next. And don't forget to head over to our website at theselfcareclub.org, where you'll find some affirmative apparel, motivational merch, and free resources designed to nurture your healing journey and to help you promote some self-love. Remember, you are not alone in this. We are walking this path of growth and healing, one breath, one step at a time. If this message touches you, be sure to drop some green hearts in the chat, knowing that the green hearts represent our collective heartbeat saying that I'm healing, that I'm growing, and that I'm here. Now, let's get into it. The topic of today's podcast is breaking toxic cycles. There is a power and a pain that comes with saying no, right? And we know ultimately no is us setting our boundaries. And when we begin to set our boundaries, that is us beginning to break generational curses, right? Breaking generational cycles simply means being misunderstood. Because declaring your independence is often perceived as defiance, or even more, it's perceived as disrespect, right? Because saying no isn't just a word, okay? It's this big seismic shift that takes place. It's the moment you stop being the background noise and you become the leading voice, right? When you start setting your boundaries and saying no, all of a sudden you are giving main character energy. It's that sacred, vulnerable space where you choose yourself. And, sometimes it's us choosing ourselves, the first time. But here's the thing. The people who raised you, right? The culture that shaped you, the environment that kept you safe, or real talk, they just kept you surviving, right? They may not be ready to hear your no. Cardi said, I'm giving main character energy. I know that's right, sis. Listen, for many of us growing up, no wasn't an option, right? Anybody else can identify with that? Like, no just simply wasn't an option for us. Because the word no was wrapped in fear, in obedience, in doing what you're told to simply keep the peace or to protect the family name, right? You know, what happens in this house stays in this house. And y'all, listen, I remember, the first time that I said no clearly and firmly, oh, baby, that air shifted. Okay? Like, the whole room simply felt smaller. My voice was steady, but inside, y'all, like, my heart was pounding. My heart was racing. And I felt the weight of generations watching me, judging me. And then, of course, after I first said no, that's when the labels came. Okay? The labels came, and it was disrespect, right? They said I was disrespectful. They said I was ungrateful, Pageant. They said I was being difficult. And, I was so proud of myself for standing up for myself and saying no. But then when they began labeling me disrespectful, ungrateful, right? That stung like a slap, because it wasn't just about the word that I spoke. It was about challenging this invisible contract that said I have to always conform. that I have to always accommodate, always sacrifice me for them. Rich Risings, Miss Glow, welcome in, beautiful. But listen, saying no wasn't about disrespect. It was about reclaiming respect for myself. It was the first, breath of air after years of holding it in. It was the beginning of a new story, one where my peace mattered, where my boundaries mattered, where my healing mattered. And so, yeah, it was uncomfortable, right? Yeah, it shook the very foundation of, old family dynamics. But the pain of the silence, the pain of being unseen, unheard for too long, that pain was heavier. I feel like saying no was my act of rebellion against the toxic cycle of self-neglect disguised as love, right? It was my declaration that my worth is not up for debate, that my energy is sacred, that I will guard it fiercely no matter what, right? And here's the truth. Every time you say no, you are paving the way for others who come after you. You are breaking chains that have bound us for generations after generations, right? We are releasing toxic energy. We are letting go of the things that no longer serve us. And, when you feel like, I guess when you feel the sting that comes with saying no, right? When you feel that ache that comes with being called disrespectful, I want you to remember those words often echo fear. Fear that you're shifting the balance, claiming your power, and ultimately you're demanding something revolutionary, right? And that revolutionary act is simply respecting or respect for your own boundaries, I guess. So I encourage each and every one of you to keep standing in your power, because ultimately your no is your superpower. And as hard as it feels, every no that you say is a love letter to your soul. Every single no. And I think it's time we honestly start to understand the generational lens on respect and obedience. Because over the years, as we were growing up, our elders constantly masked things as being respectful and being obedient. But really what they're telling us to do is keep it quiet. What's up, Lady Blue? To keep it on the hush. I feel like in many Black families, respect is a language passed down like heirlooms. It's precious, it's sacred, and it is expected to be preserved. But like any heirloom, sometimes those traditions come with cracks, right? They're tiny hidden fractures that carry pain, sacrifice, and silence. See, respect often looks like doing what elders said, even if it hurts you. It wasn't about listening. It was about obeying without question, not challenging the norm. Speaking up for yourself or questioning was seen as an act of rebellion. And the message was clear, right? Growing up, we thought that our voice came second to the collective, even if your soul was hurting. Respect often looked like us holding our feelings so that, no one else had to deal with your drama. We learn very early on that showing emotion is dangerous and selfish. We were the caretakers of peace. Even when the peace was fragile, paper thin, like just a little tiny thin veil over our very deep wounds. But for the sake of keeping the peace, right? They would tell us to keep it moving, shake it off. They say, they say that, but at what cost to our inner lives? It would look like sacrificing your dreams for your family's survival. And when I say that, I mean your ambitions, right? Your ambitions were secondary to the needs of the family. Whether that meant you had to take on extra jobs, that meant that you had to take care of siblings as if they were your own children, whether that meant putting your passions on pause. This selflessness was honored as love, but it often meant that you got lost in the shuffle. And then lastly, there's this turning a blind eye to unhealthy patterns simply for the sake of keeping peace. Rich Risings, Miss Sherry, right? Turning that blind eye to the toxic cycles, be it emotional neglect, verbal neglect, unresolved trauma, right? All of that was minimized and ignored. And truthfully, to speak out, that risks fracturing, the family unit. So silence became the currency of survival. And so that's why when you say no, it feels like a revolt, right? It's not just about one word or one moment. It feels like you are shaking the very foundation that held you together. It feels like you're breaking the mold that shaped your identity, your role, your survival strategy. And that can be scary for everybody involved, especially the people who cling to tradition as a way of protecting themselves. But here's the truth. Respect is a two-way street, not a one-way demand. Respect isn't about obedience and silencing your needs, right? And when I say obedience, I'm talking about that blind obedience. Respect is about honoring yourself and others with an equal measure. It's about creating healthy boundaries that allow for growth, for healing, and for authentic connection. Thank you, DJ Vetta. Welcome in, love. And you guys, we have to remember, we can't pour from empty cups. You can't give your best to everyone without first giving the respect to yourself. So choosing to say no when something doesn't serve your peace is not disrespect. It's self-preservation. It's the radical act of loving yourself enough to stand firm in your truth, even if it challenges the status quo. Hey, Salted, thank you. Welcome in. And so as you begin to rewrite this legacy, know that you are not just breaking cycles. You are building new frameworks of respect rooted in love, clarity, and empowerment. But again, there is this emotional labor of breaking free. I see you, Lady Blue. Breaking cycles isn't just a mental decision. There is this emotional upheaval that comes with it. It's a reckoning that is going to shake every single part of you, from your mind to your heart to your spirit. You'll wrestle with the waves of guilt, right? And it'll make you question if you're being selfish, if you are being ungrateful. There's this little voice inside of you that will whisper, maybe you're overreacting. Hey, D. Hey, Tiff. I see you, girl. And so, once that little voice inside of you starts to whisper, maybe you're overreacting, or this is just how family is, right? But deep down, you know that the silence and the submission have cost you far more than you've realized. You'll feel confusion because the love that you once knew doesn't look or feel the same as when you started drawing your boundaries, setting your boundaries, right? You might ask yourself, am I breaking something sacred? Am I causing harm by protecting myself? Welcome in, Lady Kane. It's a heavy burden to carry, trying to decipher love from obligation. And, I tell you guys all the time, anytime you're on this healing journey, you're going to experience loneliness. And I'm talking about the kind that seeps into your bones, right? Because when you begin to step away from these toxic patterns, some people will not understand. They might pull back. They may start questioning the motives, right? Or, more commonly, they'll start to accuse you of betrayal. Y'all know anytime we start healing, they tell us we acting brand new, right? And when the people that you expected to hold you instead of pull away from you, that starts to feel like you're walking this path alone. And yeah, you'll carry that fear of losing people. And when I say people, I'm talking about family, friends, the community. That fear is real and raw because we know just how, intertwined our identity and belonging are when it comes to our culture. But again, here's the truth. Sometimes losing the wrong people is part of gaining yourself. See, healing asks us to be vulnerable in ways that we never would have imagined, right? It asks you to say no and mean it without an apology, even if your voice shakes. Healing asks you to perform, to perform for yourself, right? It asks you to choose peace over people pleasing, even when your heart is aching for that external validation, that outside approval. Healing asks you to rewrite the story you inherited, right? The story where you grew up believing that your worth was conditional, where your boundaries were seen as betrayal, where your needs were last on their list. This emotional labor is exhausting. It's like we're carrying the weight of generations on our back while trying to step into a new way of being. We talked about this just before the live. Many of us are still carrying the weight and the baggage that was never ours to carry. There has been so much trauma passed down to us over the years, and we've adopted it as our own. We've carried it for so long that it feels like it's ours, like it belongs. And so we must begin to remember that, this work that we're doing to heal, this is sacred work. So every tear that you shed, every no that you say, every moment that you stand firm is a victory. Because this healing that we're doing, it's not just for you. It's not just for me. This is for all the generations that follow. So when that emotional labor feels too heavy, I encourage you to pause, to breathe, and to honor your journey. You are doing the hardest and the most beautiful work of all, and that is choosing you. And here's something else I feel like we don't talk about enough because it's uncomfortable. For some, it's even painful, right? When you say no, sometimes the people who loved you then stop loving the version of you that says no now. And that rejection, that hits deep. It's like a gut punch or a cold wave washing over your soul. It feels physical because honestly it is, right? Our bodies remember love and loss with very fierce intensity. And so in these situations, your chest tightens, your throat closes, and sometimes your spirit even feels bruised and battered. It's raw, it's real, and it's all part of the process. Because when you start choosing your boundaries, especially when it comes to family and close friends, it can feel like you're building walls where there used to be bridges. You may face questions that sting, like, why are you changing? My favorite, who you think you are? Or even worse than the questions is the silence, right? The quiet that screams louder than any argument you've ever witnessed. But here's what I want you to hold on to. Their discomfort with your boundaries doesn't define your worth. Just because somebody struggles to accept your no doesn't mean that you're wrong or unlovable. Oftentimes, their resistance is simply wrapped in fear. The fear of change, the fear of losing control, fear of, what growth means for them in their own lives. You have to remember that your self-care isn't selfish, it's survival. And you're not just setting boundaries to keep other people out, you're simply just carving out space to keep yourself whole. And honestly, it's the most radical act of self-love that you can offer your mind, body, and soul. And sometimes it's the hardest boundary, right? I think that the hardest boundary to hold is with the people that you love, right? Like when we set the boundaries, it's cool for the outside people, but when we start setting boundaries for the people that we love the most, that's like the hardest one. Because we have, we tend to think that that we're going to lose something, that we're going to miss out on something. But love doesn't mean losing yourself. Because true love supports your healing, even when it's uncomfortable. And, sometimes love means standing firm in your no so that you can say a stronger yes to yourself. I want you guys to remember that you are worthy of love that respects your limits, nurtures your peace, right? And a love that celebrates your growth. And although that path may feel lonely now, I need for you to understand that it is leading you to freedom, to wholeness, to a life where you don't have to dim your light for anyone. So hold your head up high, keep your heart open, and keep saying no. Your truth is your power. And in that power, you will find your peace. And again, I always tell you guys, setting boundaries isn't about shutting people out or building walls. It's about protecting your energy and honoring your well-being. It's about creating space to breathe, to grow, and to show up as your fullest self without sacrificing your peace. Here are, I guess, a few soulful ways to say no and, I guess, to keep the relationships intact while keeping your heart whole. First and foremost, I always encourage my clients to use I statements, right? Speak your truth from your experience. So instead of telling someone, you're asking for too much, which can sound accusatory, right? Try shifting the focus on how you feel. For example, say, you could say like, I need to rest today so I can be at my best tomorrow. And what that does is that centers your needs, and it doesn't put the other person, it doesn't have the other person be defensive, right? It shows that you're taking responsibility for your limits, and that invites understanding. Let me see what else here. Oh, another one. Keep it simple, y'all. Right. What is the famous thing? Keep it simple. Keep it simple. You know, we don't have to try to dress it up and make it more than what it is. Keep it simple. You don't need to over-explain yourself. Less is more. Anybody heard that? Less is more. You don't have to keep over-explaining and over-sharing, right? Try saying, when someone asks you to do something, try saying, I don't have the capacity for that at this moment. Thank you, Blue. Say, I can't take that on right now, but I appreciate you thinking of me. Because what this does is it communicates respect for both your own boundaries and the other person's feelings. Yet it's still firm, it's still clear, and it's kind, right? Remember, your boundary stands on its own. It doesn't need some long backstory or detailed reasoning. Don't over-explain, because your boundary is valid without an apology. And it's very easy for us to fall into the trap of feeling like you have to defend yourself or soften your no with an excuse. But no is a complete sentence. And so when you give it an excuse or an apology, it gives others the room to question you or to push back. You have every right to say no simply because it's what you need in that moment. So practice saying no without adding because I'm tired or because I have too much going on. Simply just say no, I won't be able to do that. Period. Your peace doesn't require an explanation. Now, another thing that I try to do is, if possible, I try to offer people alternatives, right? Keep the connection without overcommitting. And so sometimes, you want to say no, but you still want to maintain that relationship and show that you care. And so in those cases, offering an alternative can be a graceful way to say, do it yourself, right? It's a way to say no without shutting the door completely. So you could try something like, not today, but let's catch up next week. Hey, Janelle. Or you say something like, I can't help this time, but I'm here to support you in other ways. This balances self-care with community care. But once we get through doing all of this, y'all, no matter how nice we say it, no matter how pretty we package it up, I need y'all to prepare for the pushback. All right? It's more about their discomfort, not your right to say no. And so saying no, especially for the first time in a generational cycle where obedience was demanded, that can trigger some strong reactions. Some people might respond with guilt trips, frustration, or even anger. But that's because your boundary is challenging their expectations and their comfort zone. But remember, their discomfort is not a reflection of your wrongness or selfishness. So I need for you to stand firm in your truth, knowing that you're protecting your energy. And that is a radical act of self-love. You don't owe anyone your availability at the expense of your peace. What do we say? If it costs you your peace, it is too damn expensive. So again, saying no is not rejection, it is redirection. It's you choosing where to invest your time, your energy, your love. And when done with grace and clarity, it can actually deepen the respect in your relationships. because people learn how to treat you by the boundaries you hold. I can remember when I first started setting my boundaries, right? When I first started healing with my boundaries, there were things that I would tell myself every single day, right? Affirmations to help me unlearn silence, survival, and shrinking. I would wake up and tell myself saying no doesn't make me mean. It makes me honest. You are allowed to choose you without needing permission. You are not disrespectful for honoring your peace. You can set a boundary without explaining or defending. One of my favorites was, if my no offends them, that's not my responsibility to carry. Sounds like an it's you, right? I am no longer available for guilt-based love. And when you think about that, it makes you really start to understand that your needs matter, even if they weren't taught to you, or even if it wasn't shown to you that they mattered growing up, right? Your needs matter. And so we know that, breaking the cycle might upset them, but while upsetting them, I'm saving me. You don't have to keep sacrificing yourself to stay connected. You have to trust yourself to make decisions that align with your healing. Another affirmation that I loved was respect flows both ways, and I'm no longer accepting one-sided loyalties. Doing this, setting your boundaries, doesn't make you selfish. Okay? And once you set your boundaries and you recognize them, you will realize that you're not selfish, that you are safe. Most importantly, you're being self-aware. And for some of us, we need to even take it a step farther and not just set the boundary, but recognize that you are the boundary. So you don't just set it, you have to embody it. Every single time you say no to them, you say yes to you, a healthier you. Because healing, this boundary work, this journey back to yourself, it wasn't meant to be walked alone. It's one thing to say affirmations, and it's another to have space where you can live them out loud. Surrounded by, people who get it, people who understand it. The people who know what it feels like to say no for the first time and be called everything but free, right? Surround yourself with other people who are breaking cycles, setting boundaries, reclaiming joy, and still showing up soft, sacred, and strong. I mean, that's why we created the Self-Care Club, right? A safe space for like-minded individuals to come together and heal collectively. Healing alone is hard, especially when your no shakes the foundation of the old ways. When you step into your new boundaries, challenging family traditions, and choose peace over people-pleasing, it can feel isolating. Like you're the only one on this journey, walking a path that others may not truly fully understand or support, for that matter. But here's the truth. You don't have to walk this road alone. That's absolutely why, we built spaces like the Self-Care Club. This space for us is a sanctuary. It's a sisterhood. It's a family, right? A virtual home where healing and growth are not just encouraged, but are celebrated. In the Self-Care Club virtual community, you will find a judgment-free zone where your boundaries are honored and your feelings are validated always. right? You can come to the group and find real talk and real support from people who get it. People who understand the complexities of breaking cycles while building a better life. We sprinkle in, self-care practices, motivational challenges, and healing resources designed to nurture your mind, body, and spirit. It's a safe space to share your story, to ask for advice, or just to be heard when you need it most. So whether you're on this journey and you're just starting to say no, or you've been in this healing journey for a while, the Self-Care Club is a space that is here to remind you that your growth is the goal and that your peace is non-negotiable. So for anyone who is not a part of our community already, who is interested, I encourage you to head over to selfcareclub.org, step into the community that is here to uplift you and to hold space for every single part of your journey. Remember, healing is a collective act of love. When we come together, our individual no's become the most powerful yes to freedom, to respect, and to self-love. So don't wait. Don't try to keep going at this by yourself. As I always tell you, make a little room for you to breathe. Let's grow, heal, and thrive together. Now, before we close, I want you guys to remember this. I don't think that I can tell you this enough. It is important that you keep breathing, that you stay positive. And most importantly, I want you guys to remember that you will always be supported here in this space. So don't be afraid to take up space. Don't be afraid to claim your space and ultimately make a little room for you to breathe. I love each and every one of you to life. And I pray that you have an amazing day on purpose, filled with purpose. And I look forward to connecting with you again soon. Thank you.